French President Macron has used his traditional New Year's Eve speech to slam the extremist elements in the country.
We experienced great division and anger broke out, anger against injustices, against the course of a sometimes incomprehensible globalization, against an administrative system that's become too complex and lacking in empathy. There was also anger against profound changes that call into question our society's identity and direction. This anger has shown me one thing. No matter how excessive or overflowing it is, we will not quit.
Opposition leaders have criticised Macron's message, calling him an imposter and that he'll be held to account during European elections. Authorities in Paris were primed to tackle unrest on New Year's Eve with 12,000 police officers placed on duty. But the Yellow Vest protesters didn't march on the French capital as promised. Aymeric Monville, a French publisher and writer, warns of more demonstrations in the new year.
With all the blunders the government and especially their MPs are making, I don't see any soothing of the situation. This movement will of course continue into 2019. The movement is so popular, between 70% and 80% of the French support them or approve of the movement, that it is not excluded that, especially in the provinces, gendarmes or even policemen who have more in common with the protesters than with the officials in Paris could become sympathetic with their cause and refuse to execute orders. Emmanuel Macron embodies what the Yellow Vest rejects, globalization and pro-business policies. In a way, he cannot really give in with that stopping bit what he is. He's lacking leeway. He sought to defuse the crisis in mid-December by announcing a 10 billion euro package of measures, which was not really convincing.
France was hit by anti-government protests for much of 2018, starting from demonstrations against labour reforms to the latest Yellow Vest protests over fuel taxes. Our Paris correspondent Charlotte Dubensky recaps events.
Let them eat cake. This infamous phrase, often attributed to Marie Antoinette, has been used to demonstrate the obliviousness and the selfishness of France's elite, which in turn led to the French Revolution. Now, the attribution may be misguided, but the lesson isn't. If you ignore the cries of the social classes or you mock them, you do so at your own peril. Off with their heads! A lesson the current French president should have perhaps heeded long ago, as unrest has been bubbling throughout 2018. Things started to turn nasty as the French government attempted to evict an anti-airport community from land that they'd occupied for a decade.
To protest against the expulsion of the people of Zadis from Notre-Dame-de-Lande.
As the tanks rolled in, the eco-activists dug in deeper. Meanwhile, Macron was dismissive.
After this period, all that must be evacuated will be evacuated, because the mandate that is mine is that the Republican order must be respected.
Mayhem first reached Paris in spring over Macron's reform plans. On May 1st, violence quickly spilled over and dozens were arrested. But the penny still didn't drop for Macron. He spent the summer offering advice to all who would listen, enraging the country in the process.
These Lutheran people who've lived through transformations in recent years are not exactly Gauls who are resistant to change.
Not diplomatic.
He doesn't know how to talk to people.
He cannot say about all of people, all of nation.
It's just bad, like, on both sides. to the foreigners and to the people, like French people.
Hands down.
I can find you a job by crossing the road.
Yeah, you don't say that to people. People are really struggling.
Easy to say when you don't have the problem of needing a job.
You think that everybody can do it just by working or crossing the street, but it's not real life.
It's just a very, how to say, a rich kid attitude.
It's not great to say things like that to French people. People are in precarious situations.
Yeah, I think it's quite ridiculous for a president to be so far from realities like that.
So by the time he told pensioners to stop complaining, the French really had a bucket full of him.
The grandson of General Charles de Gaulle told me you can speak freely. The only thing we don't have the right to do is complain. The country would be different if everyone did the same.
Saying stop complaining to people in France,
You don't say people to stop complaining, especially in France.
we are people that complain all the time. We love that.
It's clumsy.
It's not kind, I think.
Arrogant.
I think a little aggressive, you know?
Hence, again, a very bullying. There's no other word for me.
In the good old French spirit of things, anger and resentment towards the man often described as the president of the rich really poured out. And by November 17th, they had had enough.
It really is absolutely crazy here on the streets of Paris.
After weeks of chaos, clashes and brute force, Macron finally conceded and offered an olive branch. For many, it was too little too late, and the yellow vests marched on. Though Macron may be ending the year rather more deflated than he'd expected, 2019 could still see heads roll in the French government if the violence continues. Charlotte Dubinsky, RT, Paris. Can I eat the cake yet? It's delicious.
Plenty more still to come, including New Year's revelers who are targeted in